What I said, that's what I said, that's what I said, that's what I said, that's what I said.
Okay, so now that you've got everything installed and ready to go, we're going to show you some of the fun you can have with Traktor LE. Now, although this is a light version of Traktor that does come free with the software, you have the ability to do all of the basic mixing that any DJ would do with any other typical software or hardware. You have 2 separate decks and a mixer, and I have all of my basic controls like crossfade, line levels. I've got EQ fades for deck A and deck B, some basic effects even, and all of the other traditional controls you find on a turntable or CD player. Everything from scratching to looping to EQ adjustments, effects adjustments, and even triggering or cueing your sample. So let's dig right in. First, I'm going to show you some of the basic controls of a mixer. Now, we're going to stay in deck A and deck B, although you do have the 4 options. Since we're only running Traktor LE, it only works with those 2 decks, so that's what we're going to focus on. One beautiful thing about this particular controller is that we have feedback or messaging that is relayed from one device to the next automatically. And an example of that would be if I'm going EQ in deck A, and I've got deck A EQ as well here, I start making adjustments to the EQ, and you actually will see and hear the difference in the EQ. So I can adjust the EQ on the mixer, I can adjust the EQ on the deck, and you get all of that messaging transparent all across every device. Now we're going to look at some of the additional functions you have on the mixer with EQ mode or effects mode. Now on the mixer, you're going to notice I have 2 mode buttons, effects and EQ. Now when I switch from one to the other, you'll notice that these sliders above it will correspond and actually remember the last messaging. So when I switch from effects to EQ, you see all of that data update as well simultaneously. Those mode buttons not only affect the faders above it, but they also affect these buttons right below. And you'll see the EQ, I have the ability to actually go in and kill the low, mid, or high by using the slider or using the buttons. So low, mid, and high can all be killed directly from the mixer as well as the deck. And you'll see the same messaging that I was referring to before correspond between the mixer and the deck. The sliders and all of the other buttons that correspond to the EQ will update simultaneously. In addition to your traditional effects or EQ modes that you find on the 3M, you also get your basic cueing controls and your master volume levels. And the way you unlock that is by going into master mode, which is the button right in between the 2 cue buttons. When I press and hold, you see the faders correspond. 1, 2, and 3 will actually change positioning. So I press and hold the master button, and I can adjust master volume, headphone volume, and cue pan. Same things you find on your traditional mixer are here, but they're just hidden on a separate tier. For any of you who want to actually know more, you open up the router, and then you hit this magic little question mark over here, and you have the ability now to scroll through a help guide that will show you the breakdown of each and individual function and section of the 3M as well as the 3Ds.